DC just handed their most important project of the year not to a movie director, not to a Marvel refugee, not to some streaming algorithm, but to the guy who wrote True Detective. And honestly, that might be the smartest thing they've done in a decade. This is everything you need to know about Lanterns, the HBO series arriving August 16th that could completely change what a superhero show is allowed to be. So if you've been waiting for DC to finally get their television act together, this one is for you. Let's talk about it. First, the quick backstory, because Green Lantern on screen has had a rough ride, and it's worth acknowledging that before we get into why this feels so different. The 2011 Ryan Reynolds film is practically a punchline at this point. Reynolds himself has made more jokes about it than any critic ever could. It was supposed to launch a whole cinematic universe. It made a lot of money on paper and disappointed absolutely everyone who saw it. And then DC quietly buried it and didn't touch the Green Lantern name for over a decade. Then there was a Greg Berlanti TV series that was announced, reworked, shrunk down, announced again, and eventually quietly canceled before a single episode was ever filmed. Green Lantern was stuck in development purgatory for years, which makes what James Gunn did next so interesting. When he and Peter Safran took over DC Studios and started building their new universe from scratch, Lanterns was one of the very first things they announced. Not a sequel, not a reboot of the Reynolds film. A completely fresh start, built for HBO, with a totally different creative philosophy behind it. And that philosophy is the most exciting part of this whole thing. According to James Gunn himself, Lanterns is going to be more of a true detective-type mystery than a traditional superhero show. And the creative team assembled to make that happen is genuinely impressive. The series was written by Chris Mundy, the showrunner behind Ozark and a producer on True Detective, Night Country, alongside comic writer Tom King, who wrote Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and Damon Lindelof, the man behind Lost and the acclaimed Watchmen series on HBO. Three of the most respected names in prestige television, all working on the same DC show. That is not a normal combination. That is a statement of intent. The official premise follows new recruit John Stewart and veteran Lantern legend Hal Jordan, described as two intergalactic cops drawn into a dark, Earth-based mystery as they investigate a murder in the American heartland. So forget alien invasions and purple sea clouds. The Hook is a murder mystery, set in Middle America, with two space cops who can barely stand each other trying to figure out what happened. That's not a superhero show, that's True Detective with power rings. And I genuinely cannot think of a more exciting pitch for a Green Lantern story. Now the casting, because this is where it gets really good. Kyle Chandler, Coach Taylor himself from Friday Night Lights, plays Hal Jordan, the veteran, the old guard. And Aaron Pierre, who had a breakout year with the Netflix thriller Rebel Ridge, plays John Stewart, the new recruit trying to find his place in all of this. Think about that pairing for a second. Chandler is one of the most naturally authoritative actors working today. He doesn't perform gravitas, he just has it. Every scene he's in, you believe whatever he says. And Pierre is the exact opposite energy. Young, intense, carries a quiet danger in every role he plays. Gunn has said publicly he'd been trying to work with Pierre for a long time and nearly cast him as Adam Warlock in the Marvel Universe before landing him here. These two characters bickering their way through a murder investigation in rural America is already fascinating before a single special effect gets involved. And Nathan Fillion is back as Guy Gardner, a role he played in Superman, bringing a third Lantern into the mix. If you saw him in Superman earlier this year, you already know he's playing Gardner as a lovable chaos agent. Having him show up in what's otherwise a grounded detective thriller is going to be genuinely hilarious tonal whiplash, and that's clearly intentional. The supporting cast also includes Kelly MacDonald, Garrett Dillahunt, Horna Jagannathan, Jason Ritter, and Ulrich Thompson, who is playing Sinestro. Sinestro, one of the greatest villains in DC Comics history, a former Green Lantern who went rogue and became obsessed with using fear as a weapon instead of willpower. Having him in this story adds a layer that goes well beyond a procedural murder mystery, because if Sinestro is involved, the stakes are immediately cosmic. And then there's Laura Linney, whose role is still being kept completely secret, which only makes everything more interesting. Here's what makes Lanterns feel genuinely important beyond just being another DC show. The new DC universe under Gunn and Safran is still finding its feet. Superman was a strong start earlier this year, optimistic, colorful, deliberately uncynical. Supergirl is coming. The Batman Part 2 is on the horizon. But Lanterns is the one that has to prove something specific, that HBO-level prestige drama and DC superhero storytelling can actually coexist in the same room without one killing the other. Because that's never really been done. The Boys is brilliant, but it's a satire. Invincible is animated. Even The Last of Us, as extraordinary as it is, isn't a traditional superhero story. Lanterns is going to be the first real test of whether you can take iconic comic book characters, put them in a genuinely dark and grounded narrative framework, and have it work for both the superhero audience and the prestige drama audience at the same time. The True Detective comparison isn't just a vibe, it's a structural promise. It means season-long mystery, slow burn, character-driven, morally complicated. The kind of show where the most important scene might be two people sitting in a diner talking, not a CG battle sequence. Showrunner Chris Mundy put it perfectly when he said the show is in many ways about replacement, about when someone should step aside and when it's time for the next person to take over. That's the real theme underneath everything. Hal Jordan as the old guard, Jon Stewart as the future, in a world that's changing faster than either of them is ready for. That's not a superhero premise, that's just a great drama premise that happens to have power rings in it. And here's the part that actually surprised me when I dug into this. Lanterns was originally planned as a Max original. Then, it got shifted to HBO proper. That move sounds small, but it isn't. HBO is where prestige lives. That's where The Sopranos was, where The Wire was, where Succession was. Moving Lanterns to HBO wasn't a scheduling decision. It was DC saying out loud, "We believe this is that level of television." That's either a bold statement of confidence or the most expensive mistake they've ever made. What's also worth noting is that a second season was already announced in May 2026 before the first season even aired. HBO greenlit more before anyone outside of production had seen a single finished episode. That's how much faith is sitting behind this show right now. August 16th, 8 episodes. The murder mystery in the American heartland. The veteran and the rookie who can't stand each other. The villain who used to be one of the good guys. And somewhere in the middle of all of it, Laura Linney, in a role nobody knows anything about yet. DC hasn't been this interesting on television in a very long time. Don't sleep on this one.